And I do believe we may be live.
Wonderful.
Let's see. I'm just going to make sure we are now streaming live. Yay!
Yay.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, everyone who's joining us. My name is Anna, and I'm coming to you from the New York Open Center. The New York Open Center is the longest running urban holistic education center in the United States, definitely in New York, I believe in the United States, and that may make it almost around the world. We want to verify that. But we have been around since 1984, and in New York City, we have welcomed tens of thousands of people to our events, our gatherings, and it is a home base for New Yorkers who want to practice spirituality, learn holistic health and alternative healing methods, who want to meet their kindred brothers and sisters, and who want to study, train, and play. And now, since COVID, the Open Center is online. We can no longer meet temporarily. We will be getting back to in person, but until that happens, we have this amazing opportunity to broadcast and have people come and visit us from all over the world. So that's pretty amazing. I feel, let me see. There we go. I feel so grateful to meet Barbara. And Barbara, I think you may be on mute. I'm not quite sure, but so Barbara is one of the Open Center's most popular teachers. And you have been, let me give a proper introduction, which is Barbara is a powerhouse, a pioneer. She has been leading the conversation around sexuality and sex and sensuality and pleasure and all those wonderful things. You've been leading it in New York City at least since the 1980s, and you have been a longtime teacher at the Open Center. You are an author, a teacher, a sex educator, a certified sexologist, and a performance artist. But mostly what I've seen as I've gotten to know you is how fun and sweet and kind you are, and how immediately you make everybody feel so comfortable in walking in and understanding sensuality and sexuality and all of the complexities that are happening now, which aren't really complexities, they're all liberations.
So nice. Well said.
Right? Yeah.
Well said.
So without further ado, I really want to introduce you or say hello to you, and also just start from the very beginning. How did you get started in your line of work?
Well, the only amendment I would make to your gloriously flattering introduction is that all my work takes place at the intersection of sex and spirituality. Excellent. Which is why I'm at the Open Center. Okay. And again, I cannot say enough good things about the Open Center. I started studying at the Open Center in very early years, and 10 years ago, 12 years ago, started teaching there. And I can't tell you how honored I was and still am to have a home in my home city at the Open Center. And I was devastated when we could no longer meet in person there, because so much of the magic has happened in person there. But I too am incredibly excited that we can take the Open Center worldwide. Yes. I mean, Paris, Moscow, Australia, the world is our oyster now. So that fills me with great delight. There's always a bright side, right? To everything that happens. So I started my work at the intersection of sex and spirituality in the 1980s during the AIDS crisis, which does kind of bring us back full circle in terms of plagues, doesn't it? Yeah. It feels like I've been here before. I started that then, my work around sexuality and spirituality, because I was a theater person. I worked on Broadway for decades. And during the AIDS crisis, I was obviously losing an incredible number of friends. I joined the New York Healing Circle to cope with the grief and the desperation of the times in the late 80s. And the Healing Circle was based on Louise Hay's work on You Can Heal Your Life and AIDS, a Positive Approach, and on her hayride in Los Angeles. So you get an idea of the foundation there. It was a remarkable group. And I met two friends there who are lifelong friends, family really, Annie Sprinkle and Joseph Kramer. And we had shared questions. And the questions were, during a plague, this one, AIDS, sexually transmitted, what are we going to do about sex? People are going to go back to having sex. Many of them may choose to do that unsafely. People have been thrown out of their religions, thrown out of their families, condemned as criminals and degenerates, all because of sex. What do we do to reclaim that part of us? We were looking for a sexuality that was healing, in that sense of you can be healed and die anyway, but you can die healed, that definition of healing. Emotional healing, mental healing, spiritual healing. We were looking for a sexuality that would support us in our grief, because I know at the worst part of that plague, I was losing up to 4 friends a week.
Wow.
And we were looking for a spiritual connection that celebrated us instead of condemned us. Annie and Joseph was studying Taoist sexuality because it went with the rest of his work. He was a former Jesuit, a body worker, and a rebirther, breath worker. Yeah. Annie and I started studying Tantra because he had the Tao part covered. We were looking at Eastern spirituality and Eastern sexuality within that spirituality because we were told that in the East, sex was looked at more like an energy and less like things you just do. And we wanted, and that sounded good. If sex could be less physically focused, if we could get all the juicy bits energetically, then we wouldn't need to take physical risks. People could be convinced to wear condoms, in other words, or in this case, face masks, but you get the parallel.
Right.
So that's where I started. And what we discovered, my little band of cohorts and I, with the help of the amazing members of the New York Healing Circle, where we started, was the incredible, unbelievable, beyond our wildest dreams capacity of sexual energy combined with spiritual energy, because they're all the same thing, to create transformational experiences in our lives. And we were hooked. From the AIDS community, we started expanding out to other communities in need, marginalized communities, and Urban Tantra came out of that work in that when Annie and I were first studying Tantra in the late 80s, early 90s, and by Tantra, I don't mean we had time to go to India, because we didn't. Our urgency was right at home. We would have loved to, but it wasn't in the cards for us. So we were studying the Western translation, frequently referred to as Neo-Tantra.
Okay.
And we would go to, and the workshops we attended were inevitably very white, middle-class, middle-aged, sincere, sweet workshop junkies that kind of all felt like they were from Marin County, California. You get the flavor. And they were fabulous people, but we didn't see any diversity. And we were not all of those things. And our friends were not all of those things. So I wanted in Urban Tantra, not a queer, gay, lesbian, LGBTQ plus only Tantra. I wanted a tantric practice that was easily accessible, easy to do, easy to understand, could be done in the time a New Yorker had, and invited everyone interested in conscious sexuality, everyone interested in that intersection of sexuality and spirituality in all its styles and forms and possibilities. I wanted them all to feel comfortable under the same tent. That's how Urban Tantra got founded. One of the reasons I am so over the moon excited about Urban Tantra at the Open Center and continuing to be online with the Open Center is that it has brought together in each and every workshop I have taught there more and more and more and more diversity of race, gender, sexual preference, body type, ability, and the others I'm not thinking of, I apologize. It has been such a potpourri. It has been just like New York, which was my dream for Urban Tantra. And it exists that way all over the world as well. But when I see it at the Open Center in my home city, it fills me with incredible delight.
Oh, that's so fantastic. It's amazing how you are you are creating such a healing space and have now for almost 40 years, right? 35 years at least. Wow.
30, I think.
Yeah, 30 years. Well, you've created such and such a pivotal time, because I'm a believer that there's a shift in consciousness that has actually been happening, you know, over these last 30 years, but now it's really happening. And all of those boundaries that were putting us in these things are now, what do we call it? Receding, right? There's an incredible integration, including in all things, gender, race, sexuality, and on and on and on and on. So you are very properly super skilled and ushering this entire continued awareness and deepening at a very historic time in the history of the world, I would say. And you do it with so much fun and lightness.
Oh, it's got to be fun.
Yeah.
As my late teaching partner, Chester Maynard, used to say, and I don't even know if this is true, but Chester used to say it, you know, the root of the word silly and the root of the word sacred are exactly the same in fill in the language he thought it was. And he's probably right, because he was that kind of bright. But I've always thought that silly and sacred had an incredibly friendly relationship.
Fantastic. So I have not had any experience with Urban Tantra. So could you fill in, give me some color as to what is it? Like when somebody joins, participates in one of your workshops or in the practice, what does it look like and feel like?
Feels like a cult. No. I've always wanted to say that, and you set up the question so well. We are actually the anti-cult. The whole premise of Urban Tantra is that you do it your way, the way that works for you, to the extent you want to do it, if you want to do it at all. It's a wholly consensual creative practice. That is what it is at its root. What it looks like, let me back up one step. It appears to be sexually focused because Tantra appears to, and I'm not saying it's not, but for all the serious yogic scholars who could say, who say this is not what Tantra is about, I would say I agree. Tantra to me is like an ocean of wisdom and practice, most of it invisible and unattainable because of its depth. Tantra was usually a verbally translated from guru to disciple practice. It was often outlawed or shoved underground. A lot of it is lost, much as what's on the bottom of the ocean is inaccessible to us right now. And the sex part of Tantra is probably equivalent to a bucket full of that ocean. So why is everybody so focused on the sex part? I would suggest, and I had to come to peace about this. I would suggest it's because there are so few sex positive, sex inclusive religions. Tantra is not a religion, but practices, spiritual paths on the planet, that people glom onto the one or two they can find.
Mm.
And people are so desperate for healing that schism between sex and spirituality that makes people frequently so unhappy, that I have come to say, yeah, we are using sexual energy. Frankly, it's just life force energy with a erotic flavor to it, but that's okay. We move energy around our bodies, between our bodies and the things we're interconnected with, between bodies and spirit. We use the physical parts of ourselves because it's a very physical practice. Tantra is really about how we move through the world, being in bodies. We don't work to shoot ourselves out of our bodies into some other consciousness that is bodiless. Rather, we work to find that ascended, holy, peaceful, quiet, mystical place within, not always clawing to get out of bodies to find it outside. So our practices tend to bring us more into our bodies and into connections to energies and people who aren't in the room. It's a perfect practice for this time. So the workshop I'm doing on August 18th, and will probably repeat again if people want it, is a part of my Urban Tantra workshop that I teach live at the Open Center. I've kind of broken this workshop up and put it in bits that are doable, completely doable online. So the first one is ecstatic breathwork. And when I first started studying Tantra, this is one of the very first practices I learned. And it's breathing with the intention of using the breath to become more alive and seeing what happens. What happens can feel like an emotional release. It can make you giggle. It could make you cry. It might make you yell. Mostly it makes people giggle if I had to pick. And it leads to a release that feels like a full body orgasm happening every place in your body, probably besides your genitals. It's kind of everywhere else. Yeah. People after this or during this can go into states where they find some inner peace, get an answer to some question they've been asking or didn't know they were asking. They might get a good cry. They might feel a connection to somebody who's not actually in the room, alive or dead. Any number of things can happen. I've heard dozens and maybe hundreds of different reactions to ecstatic breath work. Right now, I'm offering it because of the ecstatic part. And here's what I mean by that. Ecstasy in my book is not just a whole lot of pleasure, although that's lovely. Ecstasy is transformational. An ecstatic experience picks you up, turns you upside down, tosses you around, doesn't do you any physical or mental harm, but does take you on a bit of a ride, and then puts you back down on the ground and says, okay, now how do things look? And you realize they look considerably different. You're definitely looking at things from a different perspective. Or as Louise Hay would say, the ceiling of your totality of possibilities has been lifted.
Wow.
And ecstatic experience in these times, which are so fraught so much of the time, and even if we can meditate to peace, we still step back into a fraught energy field much of the time. And it's a global fraught energy field. And an ecstatic experience can, okay, so the fraughtness tends to do this to us.
Yeah.
The breath work does that. It releases us from that. It might release us with a laugh or a cry or a scream, but like an orgasm, it's this massive release of tension and energy. And it feels wonderful. And once you've learned how to do it, you can do it on your own. You don't need me. It's a skill you'll have for life.
Wow.
Which is why I teach it.
So on the 18th, there's a 2-hour workshop, and you will teach ecstatic breath work, and we can do it from the comfort of our home.
We'll be doing it on the call. You can just turn your camera. It's a camera screen to the ceiling.
Oh.
And no one will be watching you if you don't want them to. And if that's your thing, they will be watching you, except they'll be breathing, so they probably won't be watching you. But and you can turn off your mic if you want, although we hope you don't, because we like the sound of breathing. But it's all up to you. Consent is paramount. And we'll try it. You'll have an opportunity for some sharing afterwards, or some questions, and then you can go off and do it for the rest of your life with partners or without. We're going to teach it as a solo. I'm going to teach it as a solo practice.
Okay, that's amazing. So then I'm curious. So you talked about there being like multiple modules that you used when you were meeting in person across a longer spread of time. There were different topic areas that you would cover.
Yes, it was up all day, 1-day workshop.
One day, which will happen again. But until, so
of course it will.
Breath work is one piece. And can you just give me a teaser and tune me?
Oh, of course.
The
one that the one I'm hoping to do next in the autumn for Americans, spring for Australians, maybe around October, is a section that I call Sex Magic. And it's a whole collection of metaphysical and tantric breath and chakra work that it's so much fun. And it's about let's call it eroticizing your prayers, or putting some zing behind your manifestation skills, or getting clear about what you want. It includes sending healing energy to people in places on the planet that need it. It's enlisting all the power of your erotic imagination and your erotic life force energy and dedicating it to something you'd like to see happen in the world.
Wow.
That's going to be the next one.
Wow. That's amazing. And is there like another one? I'm curious.
There will be. There's one in the middle. There's an in the middle section that is a partner exercise that does tend to rely on touch.
Okay.
So no, it does rely on touch as well as eye gazing and such. So I'm going to have to dig into that more deeply and see what can be offered online. You can teach anything online you want to. And people, my colleagues and I are even starting to experiment with how we can do touch through a screen. So that one will be the last one because of the eye gazing and touch bits. I can sort of imagine how it might work. I'm just not there yet.
Right. That's amazing. I'm just curious, like if we take a step back, what would you say today? It's like 2020. What's the challenge in sensuality, sexuality that you see most people struggling with most often in your work?
Just like you were just saying when we began, about the way something like this magnifies what is in a really powerful way. This virus has really impaired our ability to connect. And I think it's just a viral manifestation of something we were having a bit of trouble with before that.
Mm.
In my work as a sexologist, it's definitely a communication is such a naff word. It's so meaningless at this point. It's how to communicate. There's that word again. How to talk to your partner or partners about what you really want without the fear of pissing them off or hurting them. It's how to hear what someone wants and how to express what you want.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that right now, that's the level, that's where connections on an erotic level, on a partnership level, are getting
Mm-hmm.
skewed, twisted.
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with trust and fear. I think it's very logical to be afraid of being alienated from your partner by something you say, or by either hurting them, their feelings, or making them angry.
Mm.
And a lot of my work right now is in trying to change those patterns by trying something completely different,
Mm.
as opposed to try to fix what couples, triads, whatever, do all the time. We actually step outside all of that and try something completely new, where we have to make the rules from the ground up. Like, for instance, if partner sex always looks like intercourse, we take that off the table for a moment and we do some eye gazing and some sensual massage, or maybe then move to erotic massage, where giving and receiving is very explicit. I am giving, now you are receiving. And we take away all the stuff that's gotten rote and messy and confusing and fraught. There's that word again.
Yeah.
That's a word for our times, I guess.
Right.
And we try to bring back the connections in safe, solid ways.
Right. And I guess what I also would hear that when we're disconnected from ourselves one to one, then it makes it that much harder to both know what we want and to communicate, to ask for it, and to then on top of that, not to hurt anybody's feelings or so this, it's like such a symbolism of connection, right? Where this whole, the disconnection, the distancing, the connection, which I always say, hey, that's an opportunity, an enormous opportunity and an invitation for the healing, for closing those gaps, for,
Look how, you're absolutely right. Look
right,
how this pandemic is causing us to, first of all, actually get the importance of connection instead of taking it for granted,
right,
and inviting us to figure out how to do it differently.
right.
That's was the one of the opportunities AIDS gave us in the 80s. And I let me just take a minute and say, it's lovely to look at the opportunities. That's what we do at the Open Center. But I just really want to honor everybody who has lost somebody. I want to honor everybody who is in the trenches of how fucking difficult this plague is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And finding opportunities is great. And sometimes you just need a good cry. You need to throw something. You need to yell. You need to get mad. You need to allow yourself to be frustrated. And that is actually very tantric. So please don't think that if you're not baking the bread and learning how to knit and homeschooling your kids, and now you have to work on the exquisiteness of connection, that you're a failure.
Right.
Opportunity doesn't mean obligation, just so we get clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One
Yeah.
of the reasons I'm only doing 2-hour workshops, and that's always if there is like a breathing or something, that meditation, something you're doing that isn't looking at the damn screen, is because I think people are overwhelmed with the intensity of screen time.
Right. So you can
So
do 2 hours process,
if
turn.
there's a process in it, and otherwise I limit it to 1 hour, because where it can be overwhelming, especially those people who have lots of meetings and stuff online. So when you come to the workshop, know that, you know, there'll be maybe an hour of screen time, but mostly you're going to be meditating and breathing and enjoying an afterglow and stuff like that.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and thank you for just like repositioning or reframing that this moment in history is really very cataclysmic and can be devastating. And then there's incredible rebirth that comes from that. And that I think just in general, whether what's happening now or whether it happened or didn't, the humans, us peoples on the planet, are have a lot of opportunity to heal. You know, there's a lot of things to work on, and sex seems to be such an intimate, at the core expression of that. And I'm so glad that you're here to do it with such joy and light and experience, expertise. What would you say is like when things land right, and one has a healthy sexual relationship with self or other, what does that look like and feel like? Is that too big of a question?
I think there's many sides to that. I think there's the personal side. This is it. The question I would ask anybody is, why do you do sex? I mean, it comes with risks, emotional, physical. It can get messy. It takes time. The connection making takes time. There's a lot of effort that goes into it. So I would ask you to ask yourself, why do you do sex? What's the big payoff? What's the thing that you go, this is what I'm going for? For my book, Ecstasy is Necessary, I did one of those incredibly scientific Facebook polls. And I got more answers to that than I think anything I've ever asked. And some people, for example, I divided them into categories because different flavors, same categories. There were categories like, I do it for the connection to someone else. I do it to find a connection within me. I find that it brings me back to nature. I do it to feel connected to God, Goddess, all that is. I do it. Then there's I do it because it's fun. I do it because it feels good. I do it because it alleviates pain. There were so many answers. Most of the answers, when I went, what's the common thread here? The common thread was connection, but what differed was what people wanted to be in connection with. So for one person, let's say we have two people in a partnership and they wonder why the sex isn't quite what it could be. For sake of example, it could be that one person wants to feel completely connected to their partner. The other person wants to feel completely connected during sex or orgasm to God, Goddess, all that is, the universe. So the person who wants to be connected to a partner feels abandoned, and the person who wants to be connected to the universe feels pulled down. And we have a disconnect. This is a somewhat common one, and it's also just a really good example. So what they need to do is, first of all, just understand that's the basis of the issue, which might manifest in a whole bunch of other different ways. And that the person who wants to be connected to their partner has to understand that they're coming back to you. They're just going on a brief flight. It's a business trip. And the person who wants to fly has to understand, I cannot go away for a year all the time. And then it's easier to compromise, and we're not in this tug, pull, push. So starting with the answer, why do you do sex? What do you want to be in connection with? And how might we get there? That's when that question gets answered, when that thing you are looking for happens, you consider that a great sexual experience. And if it goes on for a long time, it's an even better sexual experience. And Tantra is real good at energizing beings so that things go on for a long time. And this breath and energy orgasm, ecstatic breathwork technique is really, really, really good at teaching you how to help things go on for a very long time.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
My example is the way many of us sometimes have sex is that, or with ourselves especially, is we do it kind of just to get off. We build up about enough energy to fill a coffee cup. And when we orgasm, we have the fuel in a coffee cup. And it's lovely, but it's short. And when you use like the breath and energy orgasm, ecstatic breathwork techniques to fill that container, you're gathering like 30 gallons of fuel.
Wow.
And when you then let go, you're traveling with 30 gallons of fuel, and you're going to go a lot further, a lot longer. That's my analogy.
Wow. That sounds very alluring. So we actually said on this Facebook Live that you would teach us a breathing technique. Is that possible to give us a little taster, a little simple practice that we could?
Yeah, I'm going to give you one. I'm not going to give you a super, you're going to have to come to the workshop for a big old ecstatic one. We're not going to do that one. I'm going to give you one that actually is useful in these times. And to do that, I just, whatever you're sitting on, and if you're not sitting, try sitting would be better. I want you to put your head in your ass, as my friend Chester used to say, by which he meant, please put your awareness on your anus.
Okay.
Just find it. Find where, find your sit bones, find where you're sitting, right up and down on your sit bones, right on your butthole. Good. And now, relax your jaw. Let your tongue get all relaxed. Maybe yawn if you want to, fake yawn or real yawn. Either is great. You don't have to cover your mouth. I can't see you. And really gently breathe in and out of your mouth. I know for you pranayama people, this is a sacrilege, but just bear with me for a minute. Really gently. And on the in-breath, push down slightly on your anus so that it sort of kisses the chair. On the exhale, do nothing, just let go. Inhale. Push out. Just a little, just a little. Exhale, do nothing. Inhale, push down. Exhale, just let go. And breathe at your own speed. If you're having trouble making the connection with your anus, focus on your belly button. It's doing the same thing. Pushing out on the inhale. letting go and coming back up on the X. Inhale, anus down, belly button out. Exhale, relax. And we're just going to keep doing this for another minute. Okay, let's just take one big breath together. And come back. If people on Facebook Live would like to type in a word or something to let us know how they're feeling, that would be nice. I can't see it, but Anna can tell me. Anna, how did you feel after doing that?
I actually felt like it was quite complicated to do it as I was doing it. Now I honestly feel more connected to my body. I feel more connected to what I would call the solar plexus area and the chakra area, the first chakra, like an awareness and a connection to that.
Yeah. I never tell somebody to do something without then explaining how we think it works, because that's how my mind works and I always want to know. So that breath, nobody invents a breath. Let's start there. We rediscover breathing patterns and techniques from the past, whether or not we've been taught them. And my dear friend Chester observed people sleeping naked. And he observed that this was what bodies did when people were in deep sleep. The belly button, the anus, the relaxed breath. He added mouth breathing because nose breathing is inherently relaxing and mouth breathing is inherently energizing. He wanted to find a breath that produced a relaxed, alive awareness. So that, as Anna, you just said, people would kind of come back to their bodies, be present, unstressed, and ready to do a spiritual practice or meet a beloved or know how they were feeling in the body and being able to communicate that to someone else. So he called it anal breathing. I knew I was going to put it in a book where it had to sell, so I called it bottom breathing.
Very good. That's great.
So if you read Urban Tantra, bottom breathing's in there. So the reason I recommend bottom breathing for these times is it's may take a little practice. It certainly did for me when I went to learn it.
Right.
And we did it for a very short time because we were in this kind of Facebook Live setting and people hadn't committed to a workshop. If you practice that, I think you'll find that it can bring some sense of peace, yet presence to the times we're living in, where the tendency can be, how can I escape this? Let me have a toke, a drink, and turn on the Netflix. This, if you can get outside in some nature, sit down and do this breath, no one will know you're doing it. You might find another connection to the world other than the electronic one.
Right. That's wonderful. So Barbara, I just want to thank you so much for your time and what you're doing. I just feel such gratitude for what you're bringing into the world. And you have a workshop that you're offering on August 18th. 18th. It's New York Center website, the New York Open Center. So opencenter.org website. We can go sign up. And I bet you're going to have people from all over the world who will be visiting.
I hope so. I love that.
I saw that on your website that you are traveling to Finland.
We just postponed that. It's
Okay.
going to be virtual because the infection level in the United States is so high, and Finland has it so well under control. And yeah, frankly, I have a partner with compromised is the word, and it isn't safe for me to travel right now.
Okay.
So I'm working virtually for the next few months.
But I love that you have a home base in Finland.
And Sweden and Australia and the United Kingdom, and just to name a few.
That's so
I
great.
miss them all. I miss them all.
They can come and be with you on this workshop. And if the
On
time
this workshop.
work, they can still register and get the video. And that's the truth for all of us. If we can't be with the video live, we can register and we'll get the video and we'll have it. So we'll be, we can do it, I guess, what would it be called? Asynchronous, to still be part of the workshop, but do it at a time that works for us in our time zone.
Yeah, that's great, because our workshop live is very Pacific friendly, Australasia friendly. It is not as friendly for our friends in Europe.
Right.
So, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't sign up, because this workshop is designed so that the video is very, very close to as the same as if you had been there live.
Right. That's great. And then I loved visiting your website. You have 4 books. Am I right?
Yes, I think 3 that I can think of. What's my 4th? Well, I've contributed to a lot of books.
Okay. So books, there's some really beautiful videos. There's a film.
Downloadable meditations.
There's so many ways for people to access you. And then you're also a coach. So you do
I do private coaching.
And then you also have a training program, a teacher training program.
Oh, this is my passion, the Urban Tantra Professional Training Program. And we were supposed to be doing it next week. We'll now be doing it, we very much hope and affirm, in April of 2021. That happens in locations around the world, and it's for people who are various different kinds of practitioners. We've had artists, we've had a doctor from the National Health, we've had yoga teachers, artists, sexological body workers, massage therapists, blah, 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 blah. We've had just about everybody take the teacher training course, which gives you skills that you can either use they're skills to support whatever practice you are in. And we'll be announcing places around the world as soon as we know when it'll be safe to do that.
Oh, that's so great.
In the meantime, try the United States one. We hope to be able to pull that one off in April.
Wow. Well, I hope everybody feels encouraged to be with you, to connect with you, both through the New York Open Center and all the other ways that you make yourself available. And I just deep gratitude and thank you for guiding me through the practice and talking to me through this, and for all your work that you've done. And we look forward to seeing you on live through the New York Open Center on the 18th of August.
And thanks to everybody at the Open Center. I mean, I cannot imagine what it has taken to take this entire gorgeous organization online. I know people have worked their bums off to make this happen. It's going so elegantly and so efficiently, and bless you all for continuing to do your work and now bring it out to the world.
That's excellent. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Barbara. And thank you to everybody who's joining us right now and will join us later. Please visit the website, New York Open Center, opencenter.org is the actual. And we will see you on Zoom next. Thank you, Barbara.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.